Hello there, my name is Makhors and welcome to BBS Mod 1.2 changelog video. We have a lot to cover, so let's get into it. So the first feature I want to show you is BBS Gun. BBS Gun is basically Blockbuster Mod's BB Gun equivalent, but has less features at the moment. You can find BBS Gun in BB Mod's creative tab over here, and it can be edited in the item editor, which is accessible from Home key over here. It used to be a model block editor key, but now it's basically works for both. You can edit here model block, and you can also edit here BBS Gun. Default transform changes the appearance of how the BBS Gun item would look like once dropped on the floor. I think 1.3 and 0.5 makes it perfect, just like that. Then the third person allows you to change the transforms over here, first person transform over here, the GUI over there in the inventory, and so on. All of these can have different forms. For example, I can have here a stick, and there could be like a block, and then in GUI could be a cow or something like that. As you can see, all of these are different, but I'll reset all of these. Alright. Then we have 4 tabs for the BBS Gun's options. They're pretty much self-explanatory, but I'll try to explain all of these. So the launch option allows you, instead of shooting projectiles, allows you to shoot the player. But it's useful if you want to, like, I guess, to launch your player for some reason. For example, it could be like a superhero scene or something like that. You can have 2 modes, basically additive. Enabling additive allows you to accelerate the character instead of actually like setting the velocity. So for example, if I go and spam it, I would become increasingly faster if I'll go in the same direction. However, if I'll do without additive, I would be moving basically at the same speed. So it's more noticeable, it's faster. Strength rate. So over here I had 2, and then additive, I will basically accelerate way more faster if I'm going to launch myself only into one direction. So yeah, this is how launch works. Then with the scatter and the basically projectiles is how many projectiles you want to launch, for example 10. But since they have no scatter, they move in the same direction. So if I like change the scatter in degrees, you see there will be like more scatter to the way projectiles are launched. Then we can have projectile options here. We can change a lot of stuff here. So projectile form allows you to change basically what's gonna appear. For example, if I change to like a block, then we'll shoot blocks. Projectile transform allows you to change the transform of the projectile. So at the moment, projectiles are flying in the direction, but they are as oriented towards the sun, I guess. But if I want to orient them towards the direction where they are moving, I would, for example, change rotation to 90. Now they are facing where they are actually flying. You can change here the stuff as well. Use target is used for only if you have one of the particles, because it requires like special stuff here. So just enable this if you use any of the particles, so either vanilla particles, which I'll cover a little bit later, or snowstorm particles. So I need that. Now I have like sticks flying. Lifespan decides for how long the projectile would live. It lives for 100 ticks, which is 5 seconds. 20 ticks per second. Then speed allows you to change the speed, so initial velocity. Then friction allows you to change the factor that would be affecting basically kind of like air resistance. So the longer it would be moving around, then the slower it becomes. And gravity allows you to change the vertical direction. So for example, if I'll change to 1.1 and then no gravity, if I'll shoot, they would accelerate forward. And if I'll add the gravity, so it was 0.9 I think, you can see it looks so I guess it's too much. I guess it was 0.09. So yeah, they accelerate faster. And if I'll change the friction to 0.5, then they would slow down really quickly. So yeah, 99, I think it was something like that. Maybe it was 0.05. Okay, then rotations allow you to enable or disable the orientation of the projectile on X and Y axis. So with yaw it's horizontal rotation and pitch is vertical. So for example, if I'll disable pitch, then my projectiles, no matter which direction they're flying, they only will be oriented on the horizontal axis. And then with if I disable both of them, they're always gonna be rotated in one direction. So for example, it would be a pretty good showcase if, for example, I'll take donkey, and no matter which direction I am shooting, they're always gonna face south. And if I'll enable back yaw and pitch, they would face the direction they're flying. Scale fading allows you to set up in basically scaling, so going from nothing to its original scale in a certain amount of ticks. So for example, enable 10 and 10, then the projectile would first appear in a half a second from nothing to its original scale, and then disappear once it's near its lifespan. The moment the projectiles are vanishing, so if I'll disable that, so it was 5 seconds, so sometime now, yes, they would disappear, but if I'll disable, so basically it's set to 0, just check the difference. This fade out with the scale, and these guys just vanished. And going back to impact, here you can also change the impact form. So if you had like one block originally, and then let's say gravel, that's how it looks when it impacts something, collides with the block, for example, it changes to another form. Bounces allows you to change how many bounces does the projectile has, and if vanish is enabled, then after 5 bounces it will disappear, but if not, it will just get stuck. So for example here, I guess something is not, it's not maybe 0.5. And you see it bounced 5 times, now they are stuck on the ground. Later we also have damage, basically how much hearts would an entity would receive, for example. Not hearts, but rather like points. I think 2 is 1 heart. Okay, I think cows have 10 no, I think it was how many? I'm not sure how many hearts cow have, so I think 5 projectiles should kill, or less. And then knockback is, I think, the effects like they knock back after receiving the damage. As you can see, the cow gets knocked back. Collision determines whether the projectiles would interact with entities or blocks. So for example, if I'll disable blocks and I'll try shooting the cow, as you can see, the projectiles would fall into the void or still interacting with the cow. And the opposite is also true. As you can see, I shoot the cow, and the projectiles don't collide with the entity because it's disabled. And if I disable both, then the projectile will be just have no collision. And finally, there are commands that allow you to specify commands that will get triggered upon the entity that holds the item. And so when fired, when impact, when def, and tick. So with the tick is, for example, if I want to add a trail, let's say, I don't know the exact command, but maybe it's poof, 0.5, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1 speed, then 10. Yes, it works. So if I'll go and add it to ticking, due to, I guess, the way commands work, I need to disable game roll. There you go, send command feedback. False, and then we will get these in the chat. But yeah, you can add here any commands that work on the server. So yeah, these are all the features of BBS gun. Let's say you have this camera setup that you would like to use in another scene. So for example, in this case I have a camera shake using drag modifier for smoothing and then also math modifier for the randomness itself. Or let's say you have like a keyframe. Let's say you have here a keyframe configuration that you really like. For example, here is a vanilla walk cycle or something like that. What you can do is right click and then there'll be a view presets, then save, and then call for example random shake. And then you would be able, for example, here you Control Shift V, then random shake. Now you have these presets placed over here. The same thing I can do with keyframes. So for example, select these keyframes, view presets, vanilla walking, and then somewhere around here I can go and paste these guys over here. This is going to be the same exact keyframes. The same thing can be done with a BBS gun. Right clicking over here you can also save presets of specific BBS guns that you would like, or also with body parts is possible the same way. For example, here I have my model and then I can copy, instead of copying I would preset and then say like cool hat, and then I'm gonna save it. And let's say you have another form, for example this one, and then I right click here and add the cool hat that I have as a body part. This is really nice because you can save work that you already done as a preset and then reuse it somewhere else. Next feature we have right here is vanilla particle form. It basically allows you to pick any of the vanilla or modded particles that are registered in the Minecraft system and then use them over here. For example, let's say heart. Now you would see hearts here. There's some features over here. For example, you can change the offset so to enable like more like spreading of the particles in the XYZ axis. Then scatter is used for the velocity. For example, some particles, for example the flame one, if I go back and select flame, you can see they are all basically flying in the same direction because it emits towards the axis. So here I can, for example, spread out these particles with 360 horizontal and vertical as well. Now they're randomly basically spreading around. You can also change here like how many of these particles you want to basically meet and how frequent. You can also change velocity, however, keep in mind that not all particles support velocity, and actually the programming for different particles could be different. For example, let's say item, it doesn't work by default because you need to type in here, for example, which item you want to appear. And as you can see, this one has some capacity to change the velocity. However, other ones, for example, let's say note, it doesn't have. However, what the velocity does is allows you to adjust, I guess, the coloring of these particles. I guess the bigger the velocities, the more colorful they are, and so on. If some particle doesn't work, it's probably because there is no argument over here. For example, I think one of the, I don't remember which one exactly it was that worked really well. However, yeah, keep in mind that some of these have their own logic that doesn't exactly follow velocity or scatter. Next, we have BBJ model support. It's the format used by SNB and the Emoticons for models that have like a bend and stuff like that. Basically, they are exported from Blender. Special thanks to Chillin' with Dylan for sponsoring this feature. It's really cool. So the way it works is that now there's a new category of models under Emoticons. There are two variants of slim and wide models. The one that with smooth bends and the one with squarey simple bend. So basically this is simple plus from Emoticons. So let's take here, for example, I'm gonna take this guy and then I'm going to find here texture, for example my character, and then I can put on the character the cool hat. And now I have my character with emoticons. By itself, For example, if I morph into this model, you can see the animations, the head follows around. However, there is no emote by itself. However, there's a feature from 1.1 called state triggers that wasn't really reviewed, where you can, for example, take here given a key and then select some dance. For example, let's say, I don't like breathtaking, and by pressing that key I would trigger this mode. There is no way to loop animation, so for example, and if I start going around, it's not gonna prevent itself. So there is a limitation to the system. I already have this form that has a couple of actions, state triggers bind to different animations. So this is pretty cool. And you can pose these guys, you can change the color, the texture and stuff like that. And overall it's really cool. Beside that, with the way it cooperates with the entire puzzle, and with the way it basically works with BBS mode, I can take, for example, this guy, disable the shake, and here I can, for example, go and use animation to pose keyframes feature with some emote. For example, let's say here I have skibidi, and this emote is available as poses keyframes, and I can loop this as much as I like to, for example, and changing it to hermit would look nice. So yeah, this is really cool. I don't have a tutorial for how to import it. I don't really have a lot of time right now, so it will come sometime later, but at least you have these models that you can use. There are older stream on my channel which you can look up. It will be I guess I would add a card here. So yeah, for now there is only emoticons, models with their animations. Next we have vanilla armor rendering. So if I'll equip the entire netherite set, you would see that it would display upon me. So it works only with the player models, or it doesn't work on emoticons ones. So if I'll go, for example, go and in the films, I'll go and record my character doing something, and you would see that once I come back, the actor would have the armor. How it works is that now you have these 4 tracks, and in each of them you have the item as a keyframe. So yeah, that's how it works. It doesn't have support for elytra or, for example, blocks that you can put on the head, but at the same time, I think if the armor that is modded is also using the same texture-based feature, then it would work as well. The next feature that is adjacent to the vanilla armor rendering, which is called actor option. It was sponsored by Joel. Special thanks to Joel. It was a really nice feature as well. And if you go to replace, enable actor option, you see that the actor has flickered. Or what it did actually, it spawned an entity. And some replace now can be entities. So it means that I can hit them, then for example, they also can pick up items. Well, this wasn't soon enough. So here, for example, here they can pick up items, but it will be basically destroyed. And they can trigger anything that is basically modded. For example, if you have wakes mode and the actor stepped into the water, it would make the particle stuff on the water, the splashes. But yeah, this is a pretty cool feature that was requested by a lot of people, so I think it's gonna be useful. While still staying on the topic of models, default player models have been improved. Now all of these models have a new part called low body, which allows you to rotate the model from the bottom. This is much more useful than, because for example before you had to rotate everything yourself and move. For example, I'm gonna take this torso and then I'm gonna paste all of these transformations so it would basically fit the same way, which is really much more work and it wouldn't animate really well. So for this reason now there is low body, which is really useful. And then for the Michael Creeper's Bandit models, I fixed the UVs and if there was a problem with the UV on the front face of the torso was broken over here, it was flipped. And then also the UVs on the elbow parts had some issues that it didn't really look well because there were some UVs that didn't come from the correct place. And now it looks much more correct and nicer. So if I could also show you, for example, over here, looks nice, and from the torso itself. Yeah, so it looks consistent now, way more consistent and much nicer. While still staying in this menu, I also had to pick a model button, which allows you to change the model over here. So you can quickly change the model, and this way you don't have to go around, like copy all the body parts or change the NBT in the picker. So this way it's really useful. One thing you have to know about this is that if you hold Control, you can click on the model and it would change the skin to default skin of the model. So this way, if you, for example, had like, well, before that you had this model, and you say like, oh no, like I need to quickly change it to another model that has the default skin. So you go hold Control, it doesn't show here, but I'm holding it, Control, and as you can see, it changed. If I don't hold Control, you would see the texture still over here. So I go and change over here. Yeah. While on their own they're not features, they're actually optimizations that make life much easier with BBS mod. So special thanks to Zogo for sponsoring this feature and Hollow Horizon for giving me consultation and the code in order to implement this. I have here 1 million triangle sphere, which has 500,000 faces and 500,000 vertices. So if I'll go in Minecraft and enable this model block with this model, you would see that there are no problems. In the older version, it would either crash my Minecraft or it would be really slow, like maybe 2 FPS. Let's see what FPS do I have right now. Not bad, not bad. But let's see what I'm going to have without the sphere rendered. Yes, it's like very minimal. Let's try placing a couple of these spheres. So yes, the FPS won't like half, but dude, that's like how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 8 1 million triangle spheres. That's a lot of geometry over here. So as you can see, the model render and presentation is working over here. And as for the video recording, it's also pretty fast. It used to be way slower. So now all of these are optimized, and I think using BBS mod will be much nicer. While it's not really something big, I find it really nice. So if you want to change the resolution or, for example, like the qualities or the font pack options, you have to go to settings, then you have to scroll from top to bottom to edit settings, and then you can change it over here, like change some preset to, let's say, 720p. Now you can just right click record video button, open video settings, and then change the preset as you like to. It saves a little bit of time, but changing these could be like, sometimes you have to frequently change between these. Another highly requested feature that was implemented in 1.2 is the ability to record from outside at any tick. So let's say we have here a scene. Before that I was able to record from the film editor itself. However, from now you can like select a tick, for example, with by moving the cursor, then record replay, record outside. Before you record outside, you have to find the place where you want to start recording. So I want to start recording here. I go back to the film editor, press Ctrl R, then outside, and now I'll start recording outside. So now I finished recording. As you can see, the keyframes were recorded from this point, and the actions were also recorded over here from this point. So yeah, and if I, let's say, I want to also start recording over here, I find another place, so go back, Ctrl R, outside, then finish recording, and you would see that in all of these. So let's change from camera to orbit, Let's see how it looks like. So yeah, all of this was recorded correctly. So yeah, recording outside from any TIG is now possible. Now let's check out important features related to keyframe editing and the film editor. So this editor specifically. You can see there are a lot of keyframe tracks over here, which is not really useful to see at all time. For example, I don't know whether you would need to edit this specifically, except for moving sometimes with the XYZ. So what you can do is right click over here, go the tracks, and now you can pick which one you don't need. So I'm going to disable all the ones that I think I don't need at the moment. Ground damage is okay. Visible is fine. Lighting I don't really need. Transform fine. Model no. And shape keys. Actions are useful sometimes, but not at the moment. So now I clean up the keyframe tracks. Now even if I had body parts, now they're not really gonna get in the way. And sometimes you can just go and adjust as you'd like and then return it back, and your timeline now is cleaner, and you can even give it more space by holding Alt and mouse wheel scrolling to scale it. Next I want to show you is pose flipping. So let's say I have the keyframe from the original pose walking animation that I saved in the presets. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a keyframe here, and instead of like going and then flipping every part either by rotating manually on the opposite side or pressing minus key in order to negate the value over here, what I can do is recreate a keyframe and then right click here and flip pose. And now I created basically a flip version of this pose, and it works. The way it works is that you have limbs that have a naming convention, either right arm and or left arm. So here I have left arm and right arm. They work by default. However, if you have a model with really weird names, you would have to specify yourself which ones you want to basically name. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna create a new file, config.json. If you already have it, great. Then I'm going to take over here and I'm going to here create a new called flipped parts. And here in the object with the squiggly brackets, I'm gonna give here one part which is for example left arm, which has to be flipped to left, so I'm like 1L arm something. And then for the counterpart I'm gonna say like 2R arm something. And this way BBS mode would understand that you have these different parts that has to be applied, so it would use this data in order to do the flip. But by default it has to be either like arm left, arm right. It could also be arm dot left, arm dot right, or it could be like L arm, R arm, and so on. It's covered in the changelog which convention is used. Another useful feature is that let's say you have keyframes that are not really like neatly placed this way, the way it looks or something like that. And like say, oh, I want to work on that, however I need them to be spread evenly, all of these across the timeline. So what you do is you hold Alt and B and the keyframes will be spread like that, very nicely. And finally, with the keyframes now you can have in between ticks, so the tick value doesn't have to be a full number anymore. You can now actually specify a floating point number. If you want to move around, by default it moves to the full number. However, if you want to move around the keyframes like on the decimal places in between ticks, you hold shift and then you drag, and then you'll be able, as you can see, you have here non-full numbers. Same goes with creating. So by default it's still on the grid with the full number. However, if you want to get it off the grid, you hold shift and then you click somewhere. You see these are not full number. And if you have like a lot of keyframes that you need to round up, there is a round keyframe stick option, which allows you to round up the tick. So for example, if I go and say something 5.75, go click around keyframes, and now they are all on the grid with the full integer. So yeah, this is useful if you want, for example, to scale animation, and before that it would scale on the full tick and there will be not even space between them. So this is useful now. Beside that, if you have like something, for example, some animation that requires you an instant change, for example, let's say here I need the character to go up, it's gonna be like 1 point, and it has to be, the change has to be immediate, because before that it would have to be on a full tick, and you would see there is a slowdown. So you see it was like instant, and you can like loop this around, and then you would get the result you want. So yeah, that's what it's useful for, and you also can have different speed, and that is in between ticks, which can be very powerful. Last but not least, the final feature is Dolly zoom flip. So the way it works is that you specify the focus distance. For example, I think here it's about maybe 2 blocks away. I could be wrong, but let's see how it works. And then you would go and for some clip that is underneath, you animate the FOV. And as you can see, changing the FOV makes the camera distance equal away so that the thing in the focus stays the same size. So let's say I change the FOV to 2. It moves the camera so far away, but it's the subject in basically the focus object is still the same size in the frame. Let's see how it looks like in the camera. Yeah, I think 2 blocks was a perfect distance. I didn't even try it before, it was the first take. So if we change these, for example, to, I don't know, like Hermite, it looks pretty nice, not gonna lie. If you have the distance a bit messed up, you would see there's a difference in how the camera is handled. So that's why you have to kind of like play around sometimes with this number. There's not really clear way to determine how many blocks away the subject is. However, in my case, I got lucky with focus distance of 2 blocks away. So just place where you have the FOV difference, and then you can adjust the focus distance. And that's how it works. So that's pretty much it. I think BBS Mod 1.2 is going to be a game changer with all the new features added in this update. My most favorite feature is BBS Gun, as it's very fun to play around with, and yeah. But other features like record outside from tick, actor toggle, and vanilla armors will be very helpful as they were requested a lot. Special thanks goes to sponsor of this update like Joel, Chillin' with Dylan, and Zoga. Also big thanks to all paid supporters on Patreon, Boosty, and FDN. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next update.